Sometimes a game is just dead on arrival. Platinum Games' Babylon's Fall had all the momentum of a corpse before launch, stumbling around in the public eye for a few months across 2022, only to be scheduled for shutdown altogether in February 2023. The sad truth about modern games is that much like all media, the turnover of player/consumer interest is expected to be so rapid, supporting a game indefinitely seems stupid at best and utterly irresponsible at worst. Still, over the years, there have been many casualties where, for whatever valid business reason where the costs outweigh the execution, there's no way to buy once recommendable games. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 incredible video games you can't buy anymore. Number 10. Transformers Devastation. Platinum Games' Babylon's Fall aside are known as the studio to call when you want to make a 10 out of 10 fast-paced action game, and Transformers Devastation had that in truckloads. Taking place in several cityscape arenas, you played as the Autobots, smashing through hundreds of Decepticon forces by shooting, kicking, and transform power sliding in truck form, backed by a killer 80s-tastic theme tune. Widely regarded to be one of the best Transformers games ever released and a damn good action game full stop, it came out of nowhere that the Activision/Hasbro license agreement had ended, stopping all future sales on the spot with seemingly no interest to revive it whatsoever. Thankfully, if you own a copy of Transformers Devastation from before December 21st, 2017, you can still download and play, but for the rest of us, it's gone forever. The real Transformers money is in making that unbelievably good PlayStation 2 game available again anyway. Number 9. PT. A demo/lead-in to a Silent Hill reboot featuring the talents of Guillermo del Toro, Hideo Kojima, and Norman Reedus, PT was a cryptic and perpetually contorting experience, keeping players horrified and confused across its brief runtime. The structure, featuring an endlessly repeating hallway haunted by a malevolent presence, kept pushing players forward with the familiarity of the setting only slightly changing with every cycle. Despite still being an incredible horror gem for any new player, Konami insisted on its removal, as they canned plans at the time for anything relating to Silent Hill, alongside seeing the departure of one Hideo Kojima. For a very brief time on PlayStation 5, you could actually play PT again if you previously downloaded the demo, something that we do have ultra rare footage of on the channel, but once Konami realized the demo was gaining traction again, it was blocked again. Number 8. Project Spark. Cruelly relegated to that proof-of-concept game with the weird-looking conker, Project Spark was a game creation tool that predated Dreams by over 6 years, having several significantly superior features too. Project Spark had a robust code editor almost on par with some industry-standard models, save for a few more steps to get there if things had taken off. It allowed for pointers, custom animations, even online multiplayer. The suite of options was undeniably powerful, but it came with one absolutely brutal drawback. Project Spark's learning curve was simply too steep for the vast majority of players, with a knowledge of game development required to really get the best out of it. Given there was no effective way to collaborate on projects, it meant beginners were completely out of luck. Get past that high barrier though, and you'd be rewarded with an embarrassment of options. Some user creations even included a remarkably solid Call of Duty Black Ops Zombies clone, various tower defense games, and thankfully scores of full levels for Conquer. Despite the results, Microsoft recognized these stratospheric skill requirements to use Project Spark were just too high for most players to push beyond, and axed the title a few years later. Number 7. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2. According to friend of the channel and veteran game dev Tommy Miller, who wrote the majority of this script, part of the agony of working with a license as enormous in content and worldwide ubiquity as Marvel is that everything is unbelievably expensive and licenses change hands frequently. What this means is Marvel gives its best licenses to whichever publisher it regards to be the best at that time, and can then exert its colossal bulk whenever it comes to renewal. Depending on how unlimited your Scrooge McDuck-style vault of gold is, and how much selling power you have compared to your peers, it might be impossible to get the gig, and so Marvel moves on, taking everything with them. As a 2006 game then, Marvel Ultimate Alliance predated the Iron Man movie by a couple of years, letting Raven Software work with the entirety of an IP at a time before Marvel took over an entire wing of film, TV, and video game entertainment. Given just how many superheroes appear in the game, one where the player can create fantasy team-ups in a Diablo-style gameplay format, it really is no surprise that Marvel decided Raven held too many ultra-valuable cards, reallocating characters to more prominent development studios as Raven was swallowed up by Activision Blizzard to a life of Call of Duty support. Both Ultimate Alliance games, despite being incredible RPGs and the finest Marvel games that side of Insomniac's Spider-Man, are no longer available anywhere. They were both given bare-bone remasters at full price in 2016, only to disappear again. Number 6. The Culling. Yes, The Culling 2 remains one of the most hated titles in recent memory, but the original, it was a solidly innovative battle royale back when the genre was coming into its own, powered by a loyal fanbase. Adding things like trapping, crafting, and other nuanced mechanics into the usual scavenge and kill loop, The Culling was considered to be a flawed but strategic gem, letting you take on more heavily armed opponents if you planned correctly. Yet, it disappeared without warning, likely due to a dwindling player count and ultimate lack of interest eventually. Mere months later, The Culling 2 was announced, completely unrecognizable from the original, with a monetization model so aggressive, it made gamers pay to play every single match they wanted to participate in. Alongside the worst monetization model in recent gaming history, The Culling 2 streamlined its mechanics, lost what was left of its identity, and killed the entire IP within hours of being on the market. Almost impressive, really. Number 5. Paragon. Overwatch, League of Legends, Bleeding Edge, Paladins, Team Fortress 2, Valorant, the list goes on and on. If a game presents a rich cast of interesting characters with unique abilities that require teamwork to prevail, millions of us have proven it's a winning formula. Paragon then arrived right alongside the Overwatch-fronted hero shooter surge of 2016, going into early access on PlayStation 4 and featuring more MOBA-typical features, such as AI-controlled minions and more defined arena lanes, mixed with third-person action staples. In theory, it should have been Gears of Overwatch and a very easy sell. However, as this was around the time Fortnite would change its gameplay model completely, originally being a base-building PvE game, Epic decided to remove resources from Paragon and funnel them into their new cash cow that was breaking every sales and player engagement record possible. More than any other title on this list, Paragon was axed not due to how poorly it was doing, but because its publisher had another product doing infinitely better. Number 4. No One Lives Forever. One of the great tragedies of colossally popular franchises is that no matter how incredible their peers might be, they'll always be compared to whoever's dominating the headlines, labeled copycats or just trend chasers. No One Lives Forever, a smart 1960s spy shooter starring Kate Archer, which some said at the time rivaled even GoldenEye, released to a lukewarm reception. The sassy, irreverent dialogue and saturated palette clashed with the PlayStation 2 pushing games with more mature and grittier edges. At a glance, it was assumed to be nothing more than a cheap James Bond parody, which did its unique and clever design a massive disservice. On top of this, as Fox Interactive were absorbed by Vivendi Universal and subsequently bought out by Activision, the IP's ownership literally got lost. To this day, nobody knows exactly who owns the No One Lives Forever intellectual property, and despite Night Dive Studios' Steve Kick vying to resurrect it one way or another, the game just isn't available. Number 3. Evolve. In a lot of ways, Evolve was the right game at the wrong time. Its asymmetrical multiplayer, hero classes, and tactical hunting gameplay are all traits that would have cleaned house if it had been released in 2020, especially as a free-to-play title. Unfortunately for Turtle Rock Studios, it was released for full price in 2015 as one of the first freemium games, and was utterly ruined by a made-for-DLC payment model. Predating Overwatch by a year and capitalizing on the new love of class-based shooting, 2K used Evolve's initial praise as a test platform for a new model of aggressive additional monetization and micro-DLC. Unfortunately, this went down harder than Mechagodzilla after an EMP, as £15 for a single monster after paying £50 for the base game felt like a gargantuan kick in the nads. With pop-ups everywhere relentlessly pushing players towards the store and reminding them of all the content they didn't own, all good faith soured extremely quickly and moved players away. Evolve Season 2 reinvented progression as a free-to-play model, but by this point all the game's bridges had been burned. It disappeared again and never returned. Number 2. Super Mario 3D All-Stars. Whether re-releasing old games for full price, the 11-year-old Zelda Skyward Sword port selling for the same price as a brand new game, or a zero-tolerance policy on streaming meaning someone got a takedown for scanning in a strategy guide for Super Mario 64, Nintendo continually get away with horrendously cold and often stupid business decisions. 2020 was a notable example when they decided to make a compilation of classic Mario titles comprising Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy a limited time product, artificially inflating the demand by making even digital copies scarce. Given how consistently Super Mario games sell and retain their value, it's baffling that Nintendo would effectively shelve a money-making opportunity for what appears to be a totally arbitrary business decision. All of this is to say nothing of the ports themselves, where Mario 64's segmented camera wasn't improved and Galaxy's controls were barely made to work on Switch. All of this for full price. And number 1, Driver San Francisco. Driver San Francisco challenged design norms in a way that arguably no other driving game has done since. Tanner, the story's hero, is involved in a crash at the outset, plunged into a deep coma, only to discover he can leave his body at will as a disembodied spirit, jumping into and possessing any driver in the city. Part of the joy of Driver San Francisco was possessing different drivers and getting a brief but rich fly-on-the-wall look into their respective lives. Jump into a family sedan and you'd be in the middle of an argument about stopping for fast food. Jump into a lorry and you might hear the lonely thoughts of the trucker. This mindjack approach also let you rig up insanely chaotic solutions to taking out targets, pursue others as a group of targets at once, or enjoy a level of freedom in general that felt entirely unique and gameplay forward. Sadly, Ubisoft stopped selling San Francisco for reasons known only to them, but you can enjoy a very crisp 60 FPS version on Xbox backwards compatibility if you still have the disc. And those are our picks for various awesome games that you sadly can't buy anymore. Let me know your own favourites down in the comments below, and please subscribe to the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'll catch you soon.